All right, today we're going to learn just a little bit about the Boolean tool. It can be found up here in the mesh. There are three general forms of the Boolean tool. You have union, difference, and intersection. We'll cover each of these three. All right, to get started, I've set up three individual cubes and three individual cylinders, which I've cut down to 8 sides, purely for convenience of the video. Generally speaking, the number of sides won't make a real difference. The biggest issue you'll run into in using Booleans has to do with history in your objects. I find for best results, it's a good practice to freeze transformations and delete your history out of the objects before, and save your file before you dive into any complex Boolean operations. So we'll just go right down the list. We'll start on the left-hand side with our union operation. The key to making any of your Boolean operations function properly is essentially just order of selection. You need to pick the object that you're going to be removing or adding to first, so the main object. And then you're going to pick, with shift held down, you're going to left click and select the object that will be used as the tool to do the removing or adding to. I'm going to hold down my space key to open the hotbox and come over to my mesh, union, Booleans, and I'm going to come down to union. Alright, I'm going to hit this, and immediately it gives me a brand new shape. This shape is a combination of the two shapes. Over on the left hand side, you can see that I also have now history, essentially, from the original cube as well as the original cylinder. And then from those two, it gave me p cubed 5, which is a brand new shape based off of the two original shapes. And you can see, I'm going to back out of this, undo those operations. I'm going to come into my front view. So we can see here that I have my two shapes in wireframe mode. So if I select my first shape and then shift select my second shape, and I do this operation again, we'll come up here this time, mesh, Booleans, and then union. You can see that it creates the new shape yet again, p cubed 5, and it's removed my edges internally. So all that remains is the combination of these two forms. This does, however, open up one minor issue that will have to be solved, and that is due to my shape and the difference in face structure, or numbers of faces, it's changed the structure of my faces on the tops and bottoms. Now this is an easy solution, clearly, but right now we don't have 4-sided polygons, and for clean modeling we know that we want 4-sided polygons in polygonal modeling. So to correct this form, we're going to need to come into our modeling toolkit and grab our multi-cut tool. We're just going to go ahead and make a few slices to clean up this model. I'm just left clicking and hitting enter. When you're using the multi-cut tool, it's good to let that vertex turn red before you click it. Otherwise you're creating a new vertex, not connecting existing vertices. Now we have a brand new model. Now, let's move on to this next one. If we're going to do our center row, we're looking at the difference. And difference, essentially, instead of trying to make one combined object like we did in union, I'm going to be using my center as a tool to cut its shape out of the box or out of the cube. So I'm going to be cutting the cylinder from the cube. So again, I select the cube first because that's my main shape. Then I'm going to select Shift and select the tool that I'm using to cut out. I come back up here to Mesh, to Boolean, and click Difference. Doing so, again, gives me a brand new shape, brand new name, based off of the name of the original shape, as well as a history node for my P-cube1 and my P-cylinder1. Now, we notice we have the hole clean through. It's given us a new set of edges on the inside which mirror the edges from the original cylinder, only inset into my cube. But you can see that I still have the issue of now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sided faces on the top as well as the bottom, which again would need to be corrected with my multi-cut tool. Relatively simple work, but it makes complex shapes that would be far more difficult to model without the Boolean operation essentially a piece of cake. The key is setting up your models so that there's less work ahead of time, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. Alright, so the third form of the Boolean essentially is to find the difference. So it's the difference, but it's find the difference between this and this. So you're using both of these as tools to create a third individual shape. So again, I'm going to select my original object and then select the tool holding down Shift. I'm going to come up to Mesh, Booleans, and Intersection. And select, and what I'm left with again is a brand new shape. History nodes given for the original two shapes. But what I'm left with is essentially just a shorter version of my cylinder. But you'll notice what it did is it removed everything above and below from here, and it removed the additional cube. So it only gave me this cut. Had this been a sphere, I'd have a rounded top here and here on my cylinder. For this operation, I don't have to do anything to clean it up, mainly because the two original objects bore out a very clean final object. Alright, so what if we want to make more than one cut, more than one Boolean operation on a single object? Well, as we spoke about in the beginning, one thing that you're going to want to do is first remove the history. The purpose for removing the history is to avoid the computer from having errors and shutting down your file, for one, so mostly out of convenience, but the technical side of it is to get rid of these history nodes so that it's trying to make a Boolean operation based off of the existing shape, not the existing shape plus all of its prior conditions or its prior states. So I'm just going to grab these guys, edit, delete all my type history. Notice on the left-hand side it deleted all of those groups, which were actually history nodes. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm actually going to use this guy right here, my third shape. I'm going to make a duplication of him. I'm just going to slide him over to the center and come to the front here, and I'm going to snap him to the grid. Holding down X, I'm moving only on my X axis. Pop back in here. I'm going to rotate this guy 90 degrees. Now we can generally already tell that if I'm going to cut a hole through the center of this guy, that based on the current geometry, I have no center line. So I have a center line vertically. Yes, technically moving in the horizontal, but there's no vertical center line here, right? So there's no horizon. What I need is a center line here so that I don't have to do more work combining vertices together. If I cut this hole now, I'll go ahead and show you. Grab the original object and then hold down Shift and select the second object. Come back into Mesh, Booleans. I'm going to go Difference. We now have a rather complex shape, but you can see here we're going to have to do a lot more correcting in order to connect all of these shapes together, or all these faces. Currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sides on these polygons, which definitely need to be corrected. So in order to avoid that, and if we're really concerned about making sure that we're snapped to the exact center of this object, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my multi-cut tool. I'll hover over a center line, hold down Shift. That's going to give me a black line, or a black dot, sorry. That's the exact 50% for this edge. Alright. Now, I'm also going to hold down Shift plus Control. I'm on a Mac. That's going to give me an edge loop all the way around the exterior. So when I click that with my left click button, it inserts a new edge loop, which is going to give me that perfect center for these sides. Alright. Now, if I wanted to, I could also come through here and start setting up these divisions so that I can do them all at once, not have to come back through and make these corrections later, which, as you saw, was one click at a time on each of the 4 areas. Whereas right now, because this is a perfect cube, I can do like I'm doing right now and just knock them out in 4 easy cuts instead of 8, which I had to do before. Alright, come back into object mode. Again, because I know I've made a lot of corrections, I'm going to delete all by history just to make it more intuitive for the machine as well as myself. Select, Shift Select, Mesh, Boolean, Difference. And there we go. Now if you were to started with a standard cube and have tried to build this from scratch, you would have had a heck of a time without the Boolean operation. So, Booleans, really good way to create some really complex shapes without a whole lot of hassle. Alright? Okay.